Hi, hello, welcome back to PR Knowledge Center. In this today's session, we'll talk about how we are going to implement versioning for the Web API. So in earlier sessions, we talked about introduction bit of Web API and creation of Web API using Visual Studio 2022. So since an API is a form of contract between a client and a website, or a API and the website API consumer, it should be stable, consistent, well documented. So ideally, developers are not allowed to break this contract. However, this is not usually the case, considering there are several instances when they are required to make a breaking change. So generally, when this happens, you need to ensure that you have put in place measures to guarantee that the change does not affect your API consumers. So generally, versioning approach is a best practice of creating collaborative data sharing and editing controls to ensure that the related product continues to give consumers more choices without having to upgrade to the latest version. So if you look at API versioning, we have several kind of API versionings in .NET. Let's go through them first. Types of versionings. And the first one was kind of, URI versioning. This is the first versioning we have. That means this is the most natural and most commonly used approach. It involves the inclusion of the version number in the URI or URL path. Let's example, like, if your URL is something like a localhost 4523 API, the EMP. If this is the URI to get all employees, then if it have a version using URI versioning approach, then it would be like, HTTP colon localhost 4523 slash API slash here. I'm going to mention my version number like 1.0, or you can mention it some other different version like 2.0 or something like that. You can mention it here 2.0. If you don't want to add an attribute or the character V, you can remove that character also, that we will see in the going forward. And this way also you can invoke your API by passing version number as part of URI. So this is the first approach we have it, and let's go back to our Visual Studio and we'll see like this URI versioning, how we are going to implement. So I'm going to open my Visual Studio. I think this is what the service we have implemented in the previous sessions for the employees, and getting of all employees and get employee based on ID and add employee and delete employee. These are the the methods we have been implemented endpoints, and you get see all these methods here: get employees, get employee, add employee, delete employee. Now to start this versioning, so what we have to do is you need to add a NuGet package manager. Go to your solution explorer, and in the dependencies you go to the NuGet packages, and here you need to add microsoft.aspnetcode.mvc.versioning, microsoft.aspnetcode.mvc.versioning. So this is the first, the NuGet package manager you have to add reference to your solution. So this is need to be installed to your, the solution. So select this and click on install, as it is already installed in my solution, hence it is showing uninstalled. And another one is API versioning.API Explorer. This is another namespace or another reference you need to add into your solution. If you look at here, I already added, API, the ASP.NET Core.MVC versioning and ASP.NET Core.MVC.versioning.API Explorer. Okay, so once you add this version later, you can package manager references to your solution. Go back to your controller and try to add API version. The thing was, so before you add, let's add the startup programming to start your API versioning. So let's go to your program.cs. Here you need to add API versioning, the program by saying enable API versioning and default version and other report API versions as well. So to do this, what you have to do is builder.services.add API versioning of. So in this, what you have to do is you need to add config here, config dot default API version equal to new API version of 1,0. This is the default API version, adding it, and config dot assume the default version when unspecified should invoke this as true. And another one is report API versions is true, so that it will display you the reported API versions. And last but not least was API version reader. That means this I'll explain later. View of API version reader might be this. I'm going to specify header API version reader of. I'm going to add API version here. Okay, that's all for now. Once you add these lines of statements here, these are going to be executed while you start spin your application. And along with this, you need to add Explorer, like builder.services.api. Add endpoint Explorer. Okay, now build the solution. All seems to be good. And go to your controller. Try to add control stuff here. Versioning stuff to your methods. So for this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to write this get employees method two ways. Like one is for retrieval of all employees, and another one is for retrieving first or default. The first one I'm going to return first record. And this is version 2, and this is version 1. Now, what I'm to do is still root. This is controller. I'm adding default. I think controllers. This is under URI. I need it here, and next one is API controller. And here I'm adding API version of 1.0. That means this method is invoking when you specify API version is 1.0 in the URL. So how I'm going to specify that. To do this, what I'm going to do is I'll copy same thing. I'll add v of version is API version. Okay. So this will be like HTTP localhost through API and version 1.0 EMP. This is the URI path for this particular rule. No, and same thing, you need to copy and paste it here for this method, second version, and specify this is 2. When you start running this, I'll not get any exception here. Now see like how it looks like. When I run this application, by default, it will run through no Swagger. Anyway, I just stop it to run through API. Swagger. I'll directly run through my this thing. When I say this API EMP, this is the URI. It is matching here API URI. Now I'm going to mention it the version number 1.0 slash. If I mention this, still it is valid because my endpoint URL was matching with this. Now, when I say 2.0, it is returning one URL, one result, because the 2 version method is returning first record of my all employees. And if you try the same thing using Swagger, what you have to do is close this and go back to your this thing, and in launch settings and enable Swagger and just try to run again, so that you will run through your API using Swagger. And here, this is what the version which we have added. Just run through it. I'm saying 1.0. When I execute it, it is running and returning 2 rows. And you can see here responsive API supported version was 1.0 and 2.0, right? And content type was JSON, and this is server Kestrel. This is a Kestrel was the default server cross-platform web server. It is creating by .NET. Now, when I say 2.0 version number, execute it, it is going to return 1 row, and still it is showing same response headers. And when I say something 3 and execute it, it is saying unsupported API version. Message was the HTTP resource that matches the request URI, like this one, does not support API version 3.0. This is for same exception you can see through direct browsing through browser. Okay, so this is how it looks like, integrating a versioning process and invoking your methods. That way, I think you can tell to the consumer or the client saying that so and so version is having so and so method, and if you wanted to get the latest endpoint implementation, you must browse through some X version kind of stuff. You can train to the consumer or the client, and client is going to invoke the API in specified format. So this how it looks, having it versioning. Go back to our notepad. And as I mentioned, there are different versionings. One is URI versioning, that what we have seen. Second one is query parameter versioning. That means the strategy basically involves including the version number as one of the query parameter. The syntax would be like, same thing, same URL as above, localhost 4523 API EMP and some v equal to 1.0 something. In that way, it is going to execute query parameter versioning. And third one is custom header versioning. Custom header versioning. That means you need to pass version from the header. This is a technique that allows developers to version APIs by including custom header with the version number included in the mainstream, like in the attribute. For example, like let's say like to access the URL. So I think what you have to do is you need to specify a custom header. What we have been implemented, like API versioning version equal to 1.0. This is what we need to specify for the header. Let's look at this. I think a query parameter we can see first now. A query parameter versioning. That means you need to pass a query parameter for this method, like into version. This is what it is expecting. Let us say if I say like into version, and I'm going to send a version number to my method, then it is going to hit and take my query parameter. So if I run this, so what about all this stuff was just passing query parameter, and go to this API version, and here try. I think instead of this, I think better we come through this API EMP, and now this is version is 0. Now for this, what I'm going to do is API 1, and if I see in here, I got 1. And similar way, I think you can specify whatever version you want. Like let us say I want API version as 1.0, and if I browse this, let me tell you, I think I mentioned integer. Now better I mentioned float something. Now you can see there's 2. If I say here float value and compile this and run now and go and see the URL how it looks like. Remove this API employee. Still it is running. If I want to pass a query parameter v equal 1.0, still I can pass it. Now you can see version 1.1. Maybe it is rounding. Let us say if I pass 1.1 and go and see, it is coming as 1.1. And you can make it check here like condition decision making statement if it is a version number so and so, and go to this part, and otherwise go to some other part, else part, something like that. So this how it looks like, sending a version number as a query parameter. Okay, now coming back to this third one, that is custom header versioning. So if you look at the program.cs file, I have already added a line of statement here, that is header API version reader. That header name was API version. I mean header API version I'm reading was enabled with this particular name. So if the header is coming as this particular name, I'm going to read this version number. Now looks like, see how it is running. To do this, I think we must use some kind of postman. That's how it is having provision to supply header, then body part and other aspects compared to direct browsing. And if you look at this, this is what my method API EMP, and when I send this, just removing this debugger, and still I get the records now. Right, now how to pass 1.0 as version, I still get this headers. I think these are supported versions. When I say this is something 3, I get exception because this version is not supported. Right, now how to pass this version through header? Go back to, select this header, and here try this name version. This was already there. So whatever name we have added in your program.cs, you just specify version number here. Let us say 1.0 and hit this, you will see 2 records. And when I say 2.0, it will return single. That means it is allowing to pass the version number through header, and it is able to read that using that particular attribute. Okay, that's all about passing a version number via header. And coming back to the next one, the fourth one, that is the content header, content negotiation versioning. Negotiation versioning. This is the fourth one, content negotiation versioning. With this approach, developers can version a single resource representation instead of the entire API. This offers more granular control and creates a considerable footprint in the code base. For example, accept this is like the URL was something URI was HTTP localhost 4523 API EMP. This is what my URI, and for this, so accept application or content type was application JSON. This is what my content type, and for this content type, what I'm doing, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add my version number here. That means with this version number, before I'm going to say vnd example dot version 1 plus JSON, and other way was accept application slash vnd example plus JSON, and you can separately specify version equal to 1.0, and if it is 2.0 you can pass 2.0. This is how you need to pass the version number in this fourth approach, content negotiation version. So these are the versioning approaches we have in API implementation, and based on that you need to start developing this API versioning. So when to apply API version? So if you look at my PPT, this would be like flow. Like if you have a versioning an API, let us say 1.0, client is going to browse this way, just 1.0, 1.0, 1.0. Now, when do we have API version? So although when you version highly depends on your API consumers' expectations, it is imperative to version your API when making a breaking change. So breaking changes may occur when one is you are renaming fields or resource paths. It means when you're renaming a fields or resource path, we must have API version. It is usually done to clarify something after the API is released. And second one was when you want to change payload structures to incorporate things like changing an integral to a float. That means if you wanted to change the structure of your payload inputs, you have to mention it API version. And third one is removing parts of API endpoints either to fix poor choice of HTTP webs, inconsistent design, or response codes. So when you're making a change to your API endpoint, like removing of a part of API endpoint or fixing of response code or inconsistent design or HTTP web choice, you are changing it, you need to have API version. So these are the different API version approaches, and the took place to implement API version because of these changes are happening going forward with your API. So I hope you understand the API versioning implementation in .NET Web API, and please subscribe this channel for more videos. Thank you.